Dorilla the gorilla had survived layoffs, recessions, rising prices, and 40 years of hard work. But one simple message from someone he had never met would cost him almost everything. How did that happen? By the time his family realized something was wrong, Dorilla's retirement account was nearly empty. The savings meant to protect the rest of his life had disappeared. The shocking part wasn't that a scammer fooled him. It was that the scammer never asked for money at first. Instead, they gave him exactly what he had been missing for years: someone to talk to. Morning sunlight filtered through the tallest trees of the forest. Every morning, Dorilla followed the same quiet routine. He watered his small garden, made fresh tea, read yesterday's newspaper. Then he sat alone on the wooden porch he had built decades earlier. The forest was peaceful, too peaceful. After retiring from years of hauling heavy timber, his days had become strangely quiet. His children lived far away. His grandchildren called less often than they used to. The retirement money he had carefully saved rested safely in the Forest Retirement Bank. Financially, he wasn't rich, but he had enough. Enough to live simply, enough to sleep peacefully. Or so he believed. One afternoon, Dorilla noticed Saru swinging excitedly through the trees.
"You spend too much time alone,"
Saru laughed.
"You need friends."
Dorilla smiled politely.
"I've got memories."
Saru shook his head.
"Memories don't answer messages."
Dorilla laughed, but later that evening, those words echoed louder than the forest itself. Then, a notification appeared on his tablet.
"Hello! I noticed your beautiful garden."
Dorilla stared. Someone had finally reached out. He smiled. He had no idea the first vine had already wrapped around the tree. The stranger introduced herself as Willow. She claimed to be recently retired. She loved gardening, bird watching, old movies. She even remembered songs Dorilla grew up with. Every conversation felt effortless. No pressure, no money, no business, just kindness. Days turned into weeks. Weeks became months. Each morning she sent cheerful messages. Each evening she wished him peaceful dreams. Dorilla began smiling again. He laughed more. He ate better. Even Saru noticed.
"I told you."
Saru grinned.
"You're happier."
Dorilla agreed.
I forgot what companionship feels like.
Hidden far beyond the trees, Kitsune quietly watched another successful conversation unfold across glowing computer screens. Every word, every memory, every lonely moment, carefully recorded, patiently studied. Predators don't chase, they wait. One evening, Willow sounded worried. She explained that her financial advisor had helped her earn enough to travel after retirement. She wasn't trying to convince Dorilla. She simply wanted to share good news. Dorilla congratulated her. Several days later, she casually mentioned another successful investment, then another. Eventually, she sent screenshots showing impressive account balances. Dorilla wasn't interested. At first, Saru certainly was.
"You've worked hard your whole life. Why should your savings just sit there? You deserve more."
Dorilla hesitated. Kame's old advice echoed faintly inside his mind.
If something grows faster than the forest itself, look carefully at the roots.
Dorilla almost ended the conversation. Then Willow wrote one simple sentence.
"I only want you to feel financially safe."
Dorilla's heart listened. His caution stayed silent. Small questions appeared. Why couldn't they video chat? Why was every excuse believable? Why did every emergency happen just before meeting? Willow always had reasons. Poor signal, travel delays, family emergencies. Dorilla accepted every explanation. Loneliness can silence suspicion. Then came the first recommendation. Just try a small amount. The investment website looked professional. Customer service answered instantly. Numbers climbed every day. Dorilla checked his account repeatedly. Everything appeared perfect. Even withdrawals seemed to work. Saru celebrated.
I told you, she's different.
Far away, Kitsune smiled. The trap had entered its most dangerous stage. Success. Confidence replaced caution. Dorilla transferred a larger amount. Nothing happened. The balance continued growing. His retirement seemed stronger than ever. Willow celebrated every milestone with him. She even discussed future vacations, future birthdays, future memories together. The future felt real. Then came one final opportunity. This is only available today. Dorilla hesitated. The largest transfer of his life waited beside a glowing button. His hand trembled. He remembered 40 years of lifting logs, working through storms, missing holidays, saving every extra dollar. One decision, one click, one lifetime sent away. The forest remained silent. The next morning, the website wouldn't load. Customer service disappeared. Messages stopped arriving. Willow vanished. The smiling profile picture became empty. Dorilla called. No answer. Again, no answer. Again, silence. The retirement balance he'd proudly watched for months had never existed. His real savings were gone. Saru froze. Neither of them spoke. Dorilla sat on his porch until sunset. For the first time in years, he cried. Not because of the money, because he realized the friendship had never been real. Days later, Kame slowly approached. He didn't begin with blame. He simply sat beside Dorilla. After a long silence, he said,
Professional scammers don't sell investments first. They sell trust. They study loneliness. They become exactly who you hope they'll be.
Dorilla lowered his head.
I thought I was smarter.
Kame smiled gently.
This wasn't a failure of intelligence. It was a manipulation of emotion.
Kame explained how organized criminal groups often spend weeks or months building relationships before introducing financial opportunities. The investment is only the final act. The real product is false confidence. Dorilla finally understood. The scam had started with kindness, not money. Kame gathered several retired neighbors beneath an old oak tree. One by one, they shared similar stories. Different faces, different names, almost identical patterns. Unexpected friendship, growing trust. Small investment, big investment. Silence. Dorilla looked around in disbelief. He wasn't alone. The shame he carried belonged to thousands of victims. Kame spoke quietly.
Scammers succeed because they understand human emotions. They study hope, they study grief, they study isolation, and they never rush until your guard is down.
The forest became very still. Everyone recognized pieces of their own lives. Dorilla couldn't undo the past, but he could protect the future. He reported the fraud to the appropriate authorities and notified his financial institutions as quickly as possible. He changed passwords, enabled stronger account security, warned his family. Most importantly, he stopped hiding. He began speaking openly at retirement clubs and community gatherings. Other seniors started sharing stories they had never told anyone. Some realized they were being manipulated before sending money. Others helped friends avoid similar traps. Every conversation became another protective fence around the forest. Knowledge spread faster than fear. Months later, Dorilla's garden looked healthier than ever. His savings would take time to rebuild. Some losses could never be recovered. But something more valuable had returned. His confidence, his purpose, his voice. Saru apologized for encouraging shortcuts. He learned that easy promises often hide difficult consequences. Kitsune disappeared into another part of the forest, searching for another lonely victim. But this time, the forest had changed. Neighbors checked on one another. Families talked more often. Questions were welcomed. Warnings were shared. As the sun disappeared behind the trees, Kame offered one final thought.
The strongest retirement isn't measured by the size of your account. It's measured by the strength of the people you trust.
And perhaps the greatest defense against any scam is making sure no one in the forest has to face loneliness alone.